In this module, we'll move from shared managed HSM to fully dedicated HSM appliances. You'll see how the architecture changes, what dedicated control actually looks like in practice, and why high assurance environments, like banks or strict compliance programs, choose this model. You've already climbed from HSM fundamentals through key management options to operating managed HSM in Azure. You also compared Key Vault, managed HSM, and dedicated HSM, and when to choose each. Now we'll zoom in on the highest control option, Azure Dedicated HSM, its architecture, and its core use cases. Azure Dedicated HSM gives you your own physical HSM devices, hosted in an Azure data center but reserved for a single customer. Microsoft operates the facilities and maintains the hardware, while you administer the HSM itself. This setup lets you define your own policies, use direct HSM access, and support specialized compliance needs or legacy applications that depend on specific cryptographic interfaces. Think of the dedicated appliance model as renting a private vault room inside Azure. The HSM hardware is physically in an Azure data center, but it's not shared with anyone else. You manage it like a traditional on-premises device. You define roles, policies, and partitions. Your cryptographic keys never leave the HSM boundary, so you get strong isolation, coupled with cloud-scale availability. Instead of a simple key vault endpoint, a dedicated HSM sits as a specialized security appliance inside your Azure network. Your applications, whether they run in Azure or connect from on-premises, reach it over tightly controlled network paths using standard crypto interfaces. The HSM handles key management, signing, and encryption while keeping keys inside the device. When you design this, you need to plan for latency, redundancy, routing, and how administrators will securely access and monitor the HSM. Dedicated HSMs give you your own appliance, and partitions make that appliance truly flexible. Each partition is a logically isolated mini HSM that you can assign to a specific application, environment, or business unit. You decide who plays which role in each partition: security officers, admins, crypto users, operators. By separating duties and limiting access, you support least privilege, dual control, and a clean alignment with your compliance and workload boundaries. Managed HSM works like HSM as a service. Azure runs the appliance, manages clusters, patches, and availability, and you interact through familiar RBAC and key management APIs. You give up some low-level control in exchange for simplicity and consistency. With dedicated HSM, you administer the hardware yourself. You gain fine-grained configuration and specialized integrations, but you now own capacity planning, backups, incident response, and the specialist skills needed to operate it safely. Dedicated HSM shines when you need more control than a standard cloud key service. This includes payment security and transaction flows, or core trust systems like certificate authorities and code signing. It's also well-suited for migrating existing on-premises HSMs and for custom cryptographic applications that require direct HSM behavior or specific APIs. Imagine a payment processor moving card transactions into Azure. The payment application keeps using familiar payment APIs, but all sensitive keys now live in a dedicated HSM. The app requests operations like PIN verification or transaction signing without ever handling raw keys. HSM admins manage keys and policies, while payment developers focus on business logic, creating a clear separation of duties. This model helps meet PCI expectations and delivers verifiable, high-assurance transaction security. Public key infrastructures live or die by the secrecy of their root and intermediate CA keys. In that context, a dedicated HSM becomes the trust anchor because those keys never leave the device, even during issuance or renewal. You can also separate duties. PKI admins request signing operations, while security officers control HSM access and key ceremonies. Together, that gives you tight control over private PKI, device identity, and code signing with a clean, auditable trust chain. Legacy HSM migration is about minimizing change while gaining cloud benefits. Start by identifying which applications talk directly to your HSM and how they authenticate and use keys. Then map those interfaces, key types, and security policies to what Azure Dedicated HSM supports. Next, design secure connectivity, stand up your dedicated HSM, and phase in key and workload migration with testing. Pay attention to non-exportable keys, proprietary features, and latency-sensitive operations. Custom cryptographic applications often demand more than generic key operations. Examples include bespoke signing flows, complex tokenization, or transaction authorization logic that must exactly match regulatory or legacy requirements. In those cases, direct access to HSM APIs becomes critical. Dedicated HSM lets your application precisely define algorithms, key usage, and security policies, aligning closely with existing architectures. The trade-off is complexity. You'll need skilled teams to design, integrate, test, and monitor these HSM-dependent workflows. With Azure Dedicated HSM, think of Microsoft as the landlord and you as the tenant. Microsoft keeps the building running: data center, power, cooling, network, and HSM hardware availability. You own everything inside your apartment. You initialize the HSM, create users and roles, define partitions, generate and backup keys, and run daily operations. You're also responsible for monitoring, incident response, access reviews, and long-term key lifecycle management. Dedicated HSM is a good fit when shared but isolated isn't enough. If auditors, card schemes, or regulators explicitly require your own appliance, that's a strong signal. It also makes sense for high-assurance payment systems, CA and PKI routes, or niche crypto features that only hardware exposes. But balance that need with reality. Do you truly require partition and admin control? Can your team operate the hardware 24/7? And does the cost justify it compared to managed HSM? Azure Dedicated HSM gives you a dedicated appliance, deep control, and support for specialized crypto scenarios. It's ideal for payments, PKI, CAs, legacy migrations, and tightly regulated workloads. In return, you own configuration, access, and operations. Next, we'll walk through provisioning and networking design, then move into day-to-day administration.